Okay, well, let's open this meeting at 2 o'clock. Welcome, everyone, to the June 17th Commissioners Board briefing. And we're going to jump right in with our first topic, which is meeting Tillamook District, our new Tillamook District Forester, Kevin Hill from the Oregon Department of Forestry. So welcome. Make sure your button is glowing green.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us. And I'm
Thanks
just
for
gonna,
having me.
yeah, turn it over to you. Introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself.
My name is Kevin Hill. I've worked with the Oregon Department of Forestry since 1994. I started as a seasonal firefighter. I've worked throughout Northwest Oregon over that time. In 2003, I came to the Tillamook District as the Wildland Fire Supervisor, where I've been ever since. Actually, I guess it was 2004. 2 months ago, or April 1st of this year, I started in the acting role as the Tillamook District Forester, and then was recently promoted or given the opportunity to fill that role permanently. And that officially started this last Monday on the 15th.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Silence is full. So the main thing that I wanted to do when I originally scheduled this meeting was to come in and introduce myself, get to know you all, and then just some basic questions. What are your expectations for the Tillamook District Forester? What kind of information do you want and when? How often do you want to hear from me? You know, all those type of things so that we can continue that relationship between the county and the state.
Thank you. Well, we've had a great relationship from my perspective with the Tillamook office and with Kate and everyone on the staff. And so we look forward to a good relationship with you. I think since I've been in office, the Tillamook um, outfit just does an outstanding job with fire prevention, with communication, with community partnering, interacting with us. It's like just really terrific work from my perspective. And I'm going to let Erin speak more to the information we're looking for, because she's the liaison to all things forestry, the information and the cadence. And, she may have more specific ideas about that than I do, but I'm really grateful to you for being here. And I'm, after you conclude that conversation, I'd like to know just more about general operations, like the job you just stepped into. I'm curious about. So
I'm still learning a lot about it.
I'm sure.
Sure that you are. Well, welcome. Excited to have you in that role. As Commissioner Bell said, we have had a really good relationship with our local district office. Our relationships with the state office itself have been strained at any number of times for any number of reasons. I'm sure you're familiar with the history and all of those pieces related to the lawsuits and all those things. So in addition to being Tillamook County Commissioner, I also in that role sit on the Council of Forest Trust Land Counties and was the chair last 2 years, and I'm in the vice chair role this year. So a lot of my work related to forestry goes, to the state level. Mike Wilson and I, on speed dial with each other for whatever's coming up and going on. But locally, again, we've had a really great relationship locally. We've been very fortunate from a harvest perspective that the Tillamook State Forest tends to harvest a very standard and customary 47 million board feet for us. Because of course, 25% roughly of our general fund has come through those forestry dollars. So it's a really, really important piece for Tillamook County that the harvest that happen here be consistent. We know that we're always going to be tied to log pricing, and that's going to give us some ups and downs, but knowing that we can count on you all to lay out the sales and work hard to get them sold and make sure that revenue comes back to us is a really key piece of what we do together. Commissioner Bell mentioned the firefighting, obviously a huge piece. We are very thankful that it has been a long time since that's been needed right here on our forest, but we also recognize and realize that you and our entire office are part of a much larger system of firefighting for the state of Oregon that's absolutely crucial. And we know that sometimes that can create some challenges in laying out your sales, getting your sales sold, all the work that you need to do here in the office because you're otherwise deployed. So I think just letting you know, we recognize that, we know that. And you might get a little pressure or arm twisting from us when it's like, we're sitting here and there's been no sales done. How come there's no sales? We're, you know, because we're starting to worry about where's that revenue going to come from in the longer term. So, you know, there's good relationship, a little tension, a little arm twisting, and you'll hear from me a little more arm twisting about when was it sold? Where's the money? Do we have a better estimate of when we're going to get paid? You'll hear some of those things from me. Because one of the challenges we've consistently faced, and Kate and I struggled with it together and, you know, didn't get any better, but you're a new face, so we'll try it again. Is that because of the rolling 3-year sales and cut system that you all use, it's very hard for us to know from one year to the next, from one quarter to the next, if we're going to get a big check this time or a small check this time. And because we are spending that money really in real time, you know, it is coming in our budget year and going out in our budget year to pay our expenses. There is a desire to have a better understanding and a better sort of system by which you all let us know how much we're going to get and when. So like I said, Kate and I were not successful at breaking through Salem on that one, but since you're the new guy, I'm going to put it on your plate because I can. Because it seems to me that this should be much more like a just-in-time inventory that you all should be able to give us a little bit better numbers than we've gotten in the past. And that could make a really huge difference for the county. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the overarching piece. In terms of what we would like to have from you, there's a couple of things that we've done historically that have been really excellent. One of them was actually going out into the forest. And I think they used to do that maybe annually or maybe every couple of years. And I think we've only done it once in the 6 years that I've been here, but I would love to do it again. I think it's really helpful for us to actually get out with you on the ground and see what you all are doing with, you know, with the harvest. You know, we are asked often about the practices around timber harvest, about sustainability, about endangered species, all those things that are hot topics because they come out in Salem are also hot topics here for us in the conversations we have. And when we get to go out and take a walk with you in the forest and see what you're doing, it gives us the ability to give really good real-time answers to people who are asking us, which allows us, I think, to work together even better. So I would love to do, whether that's annually or every couple of years, you know,
Okay.
having a forest tour. I think that was really cool. We actually did it all 3 commissioners in one day, which means we had to put it as a public meeting, but nobody came except us. And it was, again, just really, really helpful. And it's just fun. It's fun to get out there. We
Maybe
did
looking at current harvests and,
Yeah.
you know, some reforestation things.
Yeah, current harvest, reforestation, you know, just kind of keeping us up to date. And I know that the
Conservation area.
conservation areas will be a big thing going forward. And I know that recreation facilities are now all under the REI department, so it's a little separate. But if we're out there and we're near a recreation facility, it's nice to kind of see how those interplay with conservation areas, with harvest areas, all of those things. As we're looking at the implementation of the new habitat conservation plan and the forest management plan that goes with it, we're seeing what's different. You know, how does that look? That's different than how it did prior to that going in. So kind of curious as you're doing sales and things that are impacted by that, with greater riparian buffer zones and those kinds of things, getting on the ground to say, this one over here was cut, you know, 5 years ago. And you're going to notice this one over here is what it looks like now. These are the changes. These are the differences. Again, it's helpful for us as we talk to our constituents.
We've heard, and I've read a lot about Swiss needlecast, but I don't know
Mhm.
that I've ever seen a Swiss needlecast stand. So that would be very interesting when we go on a tour.
And to talk a little bit about Swiss Needlecast and the impacts that it has, or you see it will have in coming sales. Because I think that's the other thing we'll be looking at is, you know, I'm hearing that for Tillamook County, it's just going to get harder and harder to get that 47 million board feet. It's going to cost us more to get that 47 million board feet because we're going to have to go deeper into the forests and onto rougher terrain, that we're really in a period now where the easy stuff's been done. And we're about to head into a different world where it's not so easy. And again, I realize that's probably going to impact our bottom line because you're going to have to pay more to get those trees out of there, which means there's going to be less for us to share when it's over. And again, for us in talking points and talking with the public, because if we're having to make changes in our budget because of revenues that are different, if we're able to say, you know, we actually understand what's underneath this timber revenue reduction and change. Some of it's the habitat conservation plan. Some of it's just frankly where it's time to cut in Tillamook and it's harder to get there. So, you know, it's helping us be, again, we're advocates for you in the community. You can be advocates for us in the community. And the more that we are singing the same song from the same songbook, the better that works, which means you got to train us a little bit because we don't know forestry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I've really been jumping into is that, the difficulty, increase in difficulty with upcoming sales and those project costs increasing and, because it's all new to me as well. And
Yeah.
learning that and understanding where that future investment is or what we're going to have to do for those future investments. And those are deeper conversations we're going to have
Yeah.
moving forward as to, the costs of what we're doing and how we're going to do it for the next 30 or 40 years.
Right. No, and that's what I'm hearing is it's going to be different. And then of course, the other thing is there's this constant need and desire back to Swiss Needlecast to try to get those trees out of our inventory so that we can replace them with something that will be healthier. Right. And how do those silviculture treatments fit into the harvest planning that we're doing? And how does,
Mhm.
all of that. So the complexities of that. What we do have that's kind of nice here is that we're sitting here talking today in a board briefing, which is a public meeting, but you can see nobody's here. Pretty typical of our board briefings because they're just times for us to talk. But we do our regular board meetings every Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And we schedule speakers at our board meetings. And about presentations are normally about 20 minutes. And it would be really great if perhaps annually, as you have your annual operating plan prepared, and you know where you're going to cut and what you're going to cut and how that sort of looks, to have that presentation here, because not only does it come to us, it actually is live streamed and recorded so that the community can watch that at their own leisure. So that would be something that would also be great, is when the AOPs are out, let's talk AOPs and let's talk about it in the public setting so the community can also understand what's changing.
I agree. You can use our meeting as a platform, as a way to educate the public, which it can be really useful to everybody. I live in North County and I drive on Miami Foley every day, and there are some recent harvests there that are extremely steep. They just seem like they're practically vertical. And people have asked me, like, doesn't that cause landslides? So I have no idea whether or not that was state forest land or private or whatever, but I would love to be able to hear from you, like, how do you plan that out? What does it take to harvest on that steep a slope, and what is the concern for landslide? I think we live in this country where we're watching the operations, we as commissioners, but also the whole community, where we're watching the operations and often have questions about how it's done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're currently trying to wrap up the AOP for the coming year, so that can definitely be something that we plan on. Once we get that, we can put together a presentation and show you where we're going and what we plan on doing when we're trying to put those contracts out.
Yeah, be really helpful. I know we've been very lucky because the state forest land here, for the most part, is tucked further away from our communities than it is in Clatsop County, for example. And Clatsop County has had some very contentious interactions between residents and ODF, and therefore their commissioners, et cetera. Love to make sure that doesn't happen here, in part by always just being in conversation about it. So when you have a cut that's going to have at your AOP is saying, wow, that one's sitting right on that trail that everybody loves. Woo, we should talk about that. Not that we can't do it. We absolutely need to harvest where we need to harvest, but how do we make sure those conversations are out in the light of day so that nobody is surprised by them if we have something where it is near a trail, a watershed, or a homestead,
Yep.
So, because I looked through the AOP, but admittedly, all of those names of where they are don't mean a whole lot to me, right? I'm like,
Right.
I don't have that all memorized in terms of where's where in our forest.
I think near watersheds, to Commissioner Scar's point, near watersheds is probably where we hear the most from the public. People have the most concern. So that kind of information would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, that is definitely something we can do, is
Awesome.
I
Yeah.
can work
that
with the
would be
state
great.
forest people, and when we're done with getting the AOP out, we'll schedule something and put something together for you.
That would be great. Yeah, would love that. And then just when, realizing that we're all in the same community together, anytime that something that you're doing is impacting the community, let us know. you know, so that and I'm signed up for a lot of the things that come out of headquarters, but, you know, just let us know if there's something that's going to happen and maybe firewood cutting is going to be closed in a certain area for an unusual reason. Make sure, you know, that we're on that list that we know. Because again, people come to us first with all kinds of questions related to where they live. So the more we know, the easier it is to say, ah, yes, I did hear they were going to do that. You can get, you know, if you need more information, we'd send them to your office. But
Okay.
yeah, better to be in the know. What else? I'm trying to think. Kate had set up to come at one point, she'd set up to try to come quarterly and just give us an update quarterly, kind of seasonally. Here's what's happening. Here's, you know, and I don't know if that, you know, still makes sense or not, but think about your operations and what you would like the public to know, because
Okay.
then that's something that we should probably know and we can help you let the public know.
Yeah, that's definitely something we can look at. You know, the quarterly might be a good place to start. And if nothing else, if it's not me, I can send somebody from the office and give you a update from them as to whatever they're going through seasonally, whatever that time period is, the big object that we're doing or whatever.
Perfect. No, I think it'd be great. It's just, the community wants to know. You are a big part of our community, so.
Yeah. And that's one thing I'm trying to do is make sure that, you know, that communication line stays open between us. I understand the relationship Kate and all the previous district foresters had with the county commissioners, and that's one thing that I'm trying to focus on and make sure we maintain that relationship, because there is so much state forest land here, and it does provide a lot of your budget. So keeping that relationship on good terms is very important to me.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate that because it has been a good relationship and there is just a huge synergy between what you do and what we do. So,
Good.
And I'm curious about your office and your new job. Like how many people do you supervise now? And do you have what kinds of different crews do you have? And just the operations. What is the job you just inherited?
So it's overseeing the entire district operation. So that includes the state forest and the protection program. So within the protection program, we have the unit forester Ed Walmart, which you guys have
Mhm.
met many times. And then on state forest side, we have the district operations coordinator. We're trying to change their position to make them management service to relieve some of that management duties from me. But within the state forest, there's a reforestation unit, marketing unit, and roads. So those are the other positions I supervise, those managers. And then we have a administrative staff, so a district business manager, which we have a new district business manager. Debbie Queen, our old one, retired last June. So we had a temporary and acting over the last year. And then we just filled it. We got an individual from DHS across the street from us. So big move for her. Which she understands state systems, and that's really nice. It's just
Yeah.
learning the ODF way. So that's been really nice. And then I'm also supervising the district mechanic as well. That's kind of my supervision. And then, you know, I've just been spending my time learning as much as I can, mainly state forest, because I've spent the majority of my career in fire. So I understand that side and all the fire stuff. So really diving into state forest and understanding that more. I've always had an exposure to it, but you know, as I've joked with people, I've learned more about roads and rock in the last 2 months than I ever thought I didn't want to know.
Great, for sure.
You know, it's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, had a lot of fun over the last couple months. So I'm really looking forward to it and where we can go with our district and make changes where we need to make us a little more efficient and effective, but you know, continue doing the things that we've always excelled at.
It's great. About how many ODF employees are there in Tillamook?
I'd have to do some math off the top of my head.
Approximate is fine.
I think we have around 30 permanent staff, and then we have 10 seasonals, and all the seasonal firefighters have come
Great.
on already.
That's great. That's a big piece of our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and as far as the fire side, we spend a lot of time out of district, as you've
Yep.
mentioned. We spent a lot of time in New Mexico this year. We sent 3 rotations of people down there on engines. Each rotation was 3 weeks at a time. So we had,
Yeah.
essentially 18 weeks of district personnel down in New Mexico. And then we just sent another individual to Alaska last week.
Okay.
So
Fires?
we're still helping out our neighbors or partner states. And then we expect our season in Oregon to start kicking off fairly soon.
Because it was just declared as in fire season for everybody, right?
Yeah, all counties are now in, all districts are now in fire season.
Well, I've had the opportunity to work with some of your staff. So Hawken, I won't remember Hawken Smith, I think. He was on Tillamook Bay Watershed Council with me for a while, as was Harold, whose last name I'll also forget.
Stevens.
Yes, because it's Tillamook and we know everybody by their first names. You don't have to know the whole
Right.
name. So you also have some very engaged employees that do a lot of other great things in the community, which is always wonderful to see too. So, and now you said you were on the fire in southwestern Oregon before you came up here? What'd you say you were on?
Oh, I've just spent a lot of time on
Oh.
fires down there.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah, I've spent all my career in Northwest Oregon.
Excellent.
Thank you for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, if there's anything you need from us, feel free to give me a call. My cell phone number's attached to the emails that we're sending around a
Perfect.
couple months
Yeah,
ago.
and same if there's any reason you need anything from us, don't hesitate to reach out.
Great.
As Commissioner Bell said, I tend to be most things timber, but that we are all engaged and we're all, available and open to have conversations with you.
Okay.
So
How often do you guys get updates on the statewide fire situation? Do you guys see those at all? Do you get any of that?
I'm
How
on.
it's affecting our operations here?
Yeah, because I'm on an email, I don't know if everybody else is, but I'm on an email list that comes out that I get weekly fire updates, I think,
Okay.
in the summer. I
Okay,
don't know if you're
I
on that or not.
I don't think so. I would be interested.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that I get those.
Yeah. And to that point, when we had wildfires here, there was the opportunity that in Bay City, there was the opportunity for what we realized in that process was that we needed to work in coordination with ODF in order to communicate what was happening.
Yeah.
And so, God forbid, of course, we don't want that to happen this year, but if it does, I hope you'll think of us and, lean in, pick up the phone so that we can help communicate whatever needs to be communicated. Yeah, we learned a lot in that process about we were out of practice, right? We don't have the opportunity to do that very often, luckily. And we learned about people just not knowing what was going on and us being totally unprepared to, for example, translate the messages. And, we learned all kinds of things about how we could do that better.
Yeah, and that's the difference between, this county and other counties that have a lot of fires, right? Our relationship's different, more based on timber,
Mhm.
state forest
Yeah.
related things, where those other districts and counties are much more fire involved. And that was a big learning experience for all of us, just trying to remember who we're supposed to call and when, and, remembering those little pieces and getting everybody here to understand, within the county how these processes work. And
Yeah. And even who's in charge, like, chain of command, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
well, I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk with you.
thank you. We're
Absolutely,
glad
yeah.
you're here. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Paul's enjoying his vacation wherever
Yeah.
he's at.
Yep.
And if there's anything that you need, please feel free to get a hold of us, or if you're hearing rumors or anything, just.
We'll give you a shout.
All right.
We will
Much.
give you-
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank
Good
you.
luck, Erin.
Thanks. Nice to meet you all.
I'll invite Isabel up. And Sarah, thank you. We're gonna have a conversation about OLCC licensing. Sarah, thank you for coming.
Marlene is probably online. I see MP.
I think they're all with Marlene.
And Jamie's with me too.
I assumed she was probably sitting in your office, but I couldn't see, so I called you out instead.
So today we're hoping to have a follow-up conversation from our board briefing in November where we discussed the Health Department Administrator request regarding their concerns for staffing concerns and funding for the environmental health to administer the OLCC program for the county. So we had a conversation in November where we looked at I think 4 different options and we landed on 2, and now we've narrowed that down to 1 option. And I just want to start the conversation by saying every county manages their liquor license program very differently, and not every county has an ordinance, but the ordinance is tied to the fees that we are allowed to charge. And so from November, we looked at transferring or requesting another department manage the program, and that they would become the administrator. And the other option we looked at was for the environmental health to sort of revamp and streamline their process so it would save on staff costs and printing and public noticing. And the other 2 options are really, there's 1 option, but it's split into 2. It's option 3A and 3B. And the other option was to opt out of the program completely. And it's not a mandated service. And so there was 2 parts to that option. It was opt out of all liquor license recommendations or opt out of the annual renewals. And what that means in terms of workload is the annual renewals of the bulk of the work. There's probably 60, 65 renewal applications that are processed by the health department. And there's approximately 5 or 6 new or modified licenses that come through. So they're pretty different workload, the new versus renewal. And what that means in November, we landed on those, the streamlining the process for environmental health, and we've discussed that further with each commissioner. And that's no longer an option we're going to consider. And we're just going to land on option 3B, which is to investigate opting out of the annual renewals. And so today, I'm looking for direction to confirm that. We don't make decisions in the board briefing, but looking for direction so that I can move fully forward. Because any changes we make to the process is going to include amending the current ordinance. And that'd be the ordinance 23, and this will be the 2nd amendment if we go through with that. It was amended in 2019. We updated the process from then, and so this will be another refinement of the ordinance. When I contacted OLCC, they initially said this was kind of a big deal and that only 2 other counties had formally opted out of the process. And I think there's a lot of counties that just don't respond to the recommendations. We have that option to the county. You have 60 days for renewals and a 45-day response period for new licenses. And if the county does not respond for that local government recommendation, OLCC moves on. It assumes it's a neutral recommendation from the county because the county can't deny or grant any licenses. This is a state license. And so the local government recommendation process is just us recommending. So with that said, OLCC did a lot of investigating on their end, the Salem office licensing manager, and they said, no, it's not such a big deal after all. We just have to let them know, and they would update their records. They'll still be required to notice us because they're statutorily required to notice us. So it would still be that notification, but we would, if we opt for this, we would be in their new system, their new camp system, their online portal. So for the licenses under Tillamook County jurisdiction, there wouldn't be that prompt to for that licensee to obtain their local government recommendation like the other counties have. And so when an applicant goes into the system, tries to renew their license, it would just be the OLCC part, and they wouldn't be directed to contact Tillamook County. And so what I would recommend, if we are going to pursue opting out of the annual renewals and keep the new licenses, that we formally request OLCC, so we have on record, and we could do that. I don't think we need a resolution, but I think we would need a formal letter opting out of the process and and then work towards amending the ordinance to reflect the new process. Because the current ordinance is pretty descriptive. It spells out what the administrative duties are in environmental health, and they're supposed to make all the recommendations to the board. So with that, we would have to change that, and we would just document our process in the ordinance and then send a letter to OLCC. So that's for the renewals. If we're opting out of the renewals, it's two parts. So we stay in with the license, the recommendation process for the new licenses, because that's a more involved review process, and involves Sarah from Department of Community Development for the land use compatibility. While OLCC don't necessarily consider the zoning or land use ordinance, we have to. And so with that, for new licenses, we were discussing the new licenses potentially going through DCD, getting their land use compatibility approval, and then to the sheriff's office. And the tax and assessment office, they're not required to, there's nothing in OLCC recommendation that requires us to confirm that property taxes are paid on the property, because a lot of times the property and the applicant and the business are different entities. And so they're not required to provide any information. So the only requirements, criteria that the OLCC are mostly, here, they're mostly crime related criteria. They cannot consider lack of parking, increase in traffic, too many licenses in the area, entertainment, increased noise, or zoning issues. So they cannot consider any of those. But as a county, we have to consider the zoning, and the OLCC can consider the following to refuse or restrict a license. Applicant has a habit of alcohol and using drugs in excess, making false statements, convicted of local and state federal laws, demonstrated poor moral character. I don't know how you demonstrate that, but applicant is not the legitimate owner of the business, or the business has a history of serious and persistent problems at the location. And that could mean unlawful drug use, alcohol, fights or altercations, and that's where the sheriff's office would come in. But OLCC would know these issues already. But I still think the review with Department of Community Development and the sheriff's office would fulfill everything we need to confidently recommend the approval of a new license. And you want to talk about the ledgers?
Sure, I can do that. Thank you, Isabel. Great job. Okay, sorry, I'm making some notes here. So thank you for what you've done with this. You've done a really good job. And the issues with the review process have been issues for years. This is not new. So the fact that Isabel's willing to take this on and fix this and make this better for all of us, we thank you for that. In the conversations with Isabel, one of the things that I always think about, because as you know, community development does a lot of work in a lot of different programs, is there a benefit to the public or customers? And is there a benefit to the department and the county? And I think the Two Capes license that we recently reviewed is a great example as to where there's a benefit for the customer, the public, and a benefit to the department and the county. And specifically in that situation, it was because with the department being able to provide a recommendation and some information, it essentially avoided code enforcement issues that could have resulted from the license being issued for that operation as it was proposed. The piece of the recommendation by the county is very typical. We have a similar process for permitting, as does the state. So Isabel's right in that statutory obligation to provide notice and solicit input. But if we miss those windows, they just move on. Just like if people miss our windows, we move on. We might have some conditions of approval, but largely it's checking the box to say anybody that should know about this that may have comments, we've reached out to them. And I think that if we can work together to streamline the process, I think that's also important. we can easily do this work within the 45-day time period that we're required to do it. So that was the other thing
Right.
that you and I had talked about.
Because the staffing issues are not just environmental health, they impact the sheriff's office, the tax office.
Right.
So-
And the fact that the new licenses or modifications is not the routine work, it's the renewals. And I used to sign all the renewals and that was just delightful every year. I mean, just to get a pile countywide of those renewals. I think that if we streamline the program to just look at new and modified applications, that takes the bulk of the work out of it for all of us. And I think really focuses our attention where it needs to be. Because the renewal means there's no change. The work's already been done. And then actually by making some of these changes to this process, it would also give us an opportunity to recoup some of the funding for our time doing the work, right? Because right now we get it from the health department, but there's no compensation for that type of Lux review. So having an opportunity to be a part of this to also appropriately charge for our time would be good for us as well and our fiscal health. So I'm happy to do whatever the board decides is the right direction and work with Isabel on how we could partner in that.
So the OLCC, so we contacted the OLCC regarding the land use compatibility. And while they don't require it for theirs, they responded that does not require land use compatibility approval as part of the recommendation process, and we're limited in our denial criteria. However, I said our license, if granted, does not allow the business to ignore local ordinances in terms of what they are allowed to use the space that they're zoned for. So they do consider. It might not be a requirement, but they do consider that.
Yeah.
And that would prevent, if we have that review up front, that would prevent the business from opening up and then us coming back in and then close them down. We didn't go through the approval process and then everything, and then we're like, no, you're not zoned for that.
Right.
So, hoping to.
Yeah, that seems to me like to make a whole lot of sense, right? Is that because it is about customer service, right? Someone wants to open a business, we want them to open a business, but we want them to open a business in the right place so that we don't have to come back and say, I'm so sorry. You spent all your money preparing this and you can't be here because zoning doesn't allow it. So from my perspective, having that zoning check at the front is important. I understand that the state can deny it, can ignore us if they so choose. It's not one of their criteria, and we can't stop someone, but we can at least educate someone up front to say, you really can't put it here. And if they want to march through and say, I'm going to see if the state will give it to me anyway, they can do that and we'll circle back. But boy, every time we can avoid that,
Right.
that's much better.
Well, in the bigger picture, one that you maybe were not aware of was there was recently a change in, it was a distillery and hard liquor. And even in building codes, when you have products that you are processing that have a alcohol content greater than 20%, you actually get kicked into fire and life safety regulations regulated by the state fire marshal's office. So while we would not see these applications for the cities, if things like that also come in, we have the right people at our disposal to run those through to where not just for zoning, but if there's a bigger,
Yeah.
question there, back to that customer service, we can catch it at the front end, hopefully, to where people don't spend a bunch of time and money to find out there's this terrible process now in front of them that they may not be able to get through.
Right.
I appreciate that because we don't have a countywide business license,
Right.
I think this is an important safety net for if somebody's going to open a business in unincorporated Tillamook County, they need some process by which we can tell them this can't be done there.
Mhm.
So before they make a big investment. So I think it's important and I appreciate your recommendation, Isabel, and all your work on this for many, many months. And I appreciate, Sarah, that when Isabel was briefing me on this, I said, what does Sarah think? And she said, oh, we came up with this together. So I appreciate that you came to the conclusion together and that you're willing to take this on.
Thank you.
And I support jettisoning the renewals.
Perfect. I do too. I think that's ridiculous that we're doing all that paperwork when it just doesn't matter. It's a lot of paper pushing for multiple departments. So let's not push paper where we don't need to. So, and I think the original request for this came from the Environmental Health Department to say, we don't think that we should be the lead on this. It doesn't make sense. And I think I appreciate that request. I know that it's, was initially met with, what? It's your job. Don't ask, right? And it took us all a while to be like, wait, we got to go deeper. This is a bigger issue. And I think we've gotten to the bottom of the bigger issue, and I too appreciate all the work to do that. So I'm definitely in support of jettisoning the renewals and having the new ones go through. At this point, it is community development and the sheriff's office that actually have valid information for the state to look at and things that wrap up into our customer service. So, I mean, it sounds good to me. I think we do have Marlene and Jamie on. I don't know if they just want to celebrate that, although it took us a year, and I can't see them because their square is very tiny, but they just want to celebrate that although it took us more than a year, perhaps we have heard them and we're happy to remove that from their workload, or if there's anything else they wanted to share.
Thanks. Thank you. We appreciate the time and effort to put it together and your willingness to look at it deeper. Really do. Thank you.
You bet. And so there will be a process before it can all be transferred, because we do have this outstanding ordinance that currently still requires that it be done in a certain way until we can get that ordinance amended. So we ask for just a little bit more patience on your side while we work through the process, but please know we are in the process, and this was a really important stage in that.
It's been a very busy year for the Commissioner's Office for ordinances. So this ordinance did not get pushed back. It was in the queue, and we got up there as quickly as we possibly could. And I talked to also Commissioner Forney, and he was supportive of opting out of the renewal licenses.
Perfect. All right. Anything else?
Oh,
You have a
Sandra,
question?
please.
Hi,
Hi.
I want to confirm what I thought I heard is that this new ordinance will remove the assessor and the taxation department from the approval process. Is that
That's
correct?
what- That's what Isabel was proposing.
Okay.
Would you like to be removed?
Well, if there's a chance to get taxes paid that aren't paid, I'm just not sure what avenue we would take if they weren't paid. Daniel, can I have you jump on here and add your 2 cents?
Sure. I've only ever seen a handful that have not had taxes paid, but they are out there. I just assumed that because it was part of OLCC and they also do the lottery stuff, that taxes were somehow required to be paid, and that there could be a reporting procedure that we could report that to and have the OLCC step in. But ever since I took over, ever since I took over, I was always told, always check yes on the application, and it wasn't my place to tell somebody that they didn't qualify because their taxes were unpaid. So that's how
Okay.
I've been doing it.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So that the OLCC, that's not a criteria for them, and it's not a criteria for us to not recommend renewal
Yeah.
or new license. So
So even if
Okay.
they have unpaid taxes, we still forward it to the OLCC because they don't care about that?
they don't have any mechanism. It's not part of their criteria they consider. So it's part of our ordinance, but it's not part of their criteria.
I mean, so Cassandra, if you feel like it's useful, I mean, you absolutely can stay in if you would like. Part of our goal was to streamline this, so since you
Mhm.
couldn't necessarily do anything about it through this process, that we wouldn't make you do this process. But since we're only talking about new ones at this point and only, maybe 5 or 6 per year, if you would like to remain, if you think there is some value to you in doing so, because it's OLCC doesn't care.
Okay. I'd like to request that I have a little bit of time to think about it because now I'm
Oh, sure.
thinking about, is it also a notice for us of a new business for personal property? So I just need to kind of think about a few of those things. And should I just email Isabel, yes or no?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
And I will look into it further with OLCC, but I'm pretty certain, but if that changes, I'll let you know.
And that's an excellent point, Cassandra, that we don't have a mechanism that built in for you knowing when there's a new business in unincorporated Tillamook County.
Right.
So, good point.
If I may, I agree with her point, and there's some examples I can think of, including we sometimes get these for people who are doing online wine sales out of their homes, firearms, or other things. So it's not just a restaurant or a grocery store. There's other types of uses and reasons we should get those. And that might have some sort of cause and effect to requirements for personal property tax. So I think that's something to look into as well, or at least, happy to provide her notice when we do those. It's easy to send a FYI email or something if that's what it ends up being.
Right. That's where if tax doesn't matter, delinquent tax doesn't matter, and there's no mechanism, however, being noticed of a business. Of course, these aren't all notices of new businesses. These are just renewals. Some of them are just renewals. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
It may just be add to the notice list, like you said.
Yeah, because we're gonna stop doing the renewals. We're gonna just
Right.
let people go
Yeah.
online and take care of that. This would just be the 5 or 6
okay.
estimated new businesses that we're gonna have OLCC.
Any changes to the
Or
current
modification.
Right,
renewals
modification.
would be modified, and so you would see that
Okay.
potentially.
Okay.
But-
All right. I'll talk to staff and see what we want to do. Thank you for letting me jump in.
You bet.
Perfect, you
Thank
bet.
for your comments. Anything else on this?
I think I have enough information, so I'll confirm with OLCC exactly about the property taxes. But I'm pretty certain they confirmed that it's not in their criteria. So look at it, there's no mechanism and there's nothing we can do to prevent them from getting their license because of property taxes. But if Cassandra would like to be included for the new licenses, to check that real property to the business name that matches, that wouldn't be, because there's less than half a dozen a year, so it's not, you're taking away the bulk of the renewals,
Yeah,
and
and the
there'd be no changes in the renewals.
Right, so the trick, it doesn't give any leverage. It's just a heads up to her that there's a somebody who's not paying their property taxes, who is either starting a business or leasing to someone who's starting a business.
Or they're not paying their personal property tax, was it real?
Right. Personal, or if she needs to create an account, because now there's a new
Right.
personal property account that didn't
Yeah.
exist before.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because the business has two accounts, or the property, the property taxes and the personal,
Yeah.
or their inventory in the business. Okay. I think you have enough?
Thank you.
thank
both.
you. Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks
Thank you.
everybody.
Okay, well, now we have a executive session scheduled. Brian, what's our ORS?
Madam Chair, this executive session this afternoon will be held pursuant to ORS 192.660 subparagraph 2E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions.
Thank you. The board briefing at 3:30. We did not make any decisions in our executive session, and unless there's something else before they go to the order, we are adjourning this meeting at 3:33. Thank you, everyone.